Dang. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. I know we are one day late. We usually take place on Wednesdays. However, because of the holidays, we are back on Thursday, but we're still going to appease your appetite for everything slap fighting and power slap. What a year it was. This show is going to be the prediction show of what we think is going to happen in 2025. The storylines that we believe will unfold, who we think will be male and female striker of the year. We're going to get into comeback striker of the year, and some of the rookies, the young guys, who we believe will be the breakout. We're also going to talk about some of the storylines, the development, things that we think are going to happen, and what's going to be the overall encompassing theme for Power Slap in 2025. Ding, you got a ton of little ones. Did they enjoy everything that Santa had to bring?
Yeah, man. What's interesting is hopefully nobody's little ones are watching this, but you wrap all these gifts, you spend all this time trying to make everything nice, and then fucking 30 seconds later, it all goes to shit. So, yeah, hope you had a good holiday, man. I know you got a little one yourself. And those of you who are watching, hope you guys had a Merry Christmas. And if you're Jewish, you celebrate Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah. You guys are in the swing of that. That started yesterday evening. So cheers and happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what a year it was, 2024. We're kind of wrapping up here with, the Power Slap Awards that they're launching. As of today, they dropped their first award. Dumpling getting knockout of the year over Camille the Polar Bear. We obviously heard and we've seen on YouTube the past fights and what Dumpling could do. He definitely didn't disappoint for his first appearance in Power Slap. Overall, do you think they got it right with this particular award?
Yeah, it's tough, right? It depends on how you judge a knockout. I saw some people, as you guys know, we did the Power Wars last year, and a lot of the feedback that we got last year is stuff that we took into account. And one of the things that people said was that if you got a TKO, it really shouldn't count. It should really be flat knockouts. So if that's to be the measuring stick, then I think Power Slap definitely stood by that. As far as what you're looking for when it comes to a knockout, right? Is it the caliber of the opponent? Is it the manner in which the knockout happens? Is it how it looks, its appearance? Is it how early it happened in the fight? I think that there's a lot of different factors that you go with. I saw a lot of people saying that they thought Darren Godfrey versus the Chief would take the cake. I actually saw the Chief himself say that, which is crazy because he's the one who was on the wrong side of that equation. But listen, much respect to all the guys who had incredible knockouts. As we know, despite what people may think on the surface level, it's not as easy to achieve a knockout in this sport as you might think it is, especially one that really, really puts somebody out cold. I think that, the Dumpling versus Camille was one of those moments. And so I think it's, you definitely have an argument one way or the other. And there's definitely some great knockouts out there. And we really tried to commemorate a lot of that with the way that we nominated people. Of course, we don't select awardees or winners, if you will. But I think all the people on that list fit the bill, clean knockouts, some of them from behind, some of them right away. So very impressive year for these guys who are putting in work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, phenomenal year, kind of as you touched on and you alluded to, but knockouts not being the easy to come by, and especially in impressive fashion. We do know, however, if you do achieve it, you definitely rise up the ranks in where you'll be placed in the update rankings. And we see guys who get those impressive knockouts obviously catapult themselves up into potential championship caliber matches. We see it time and time again. We know the matchmakers at Power Slap want to see those viral knockouts, those viral moments to really push this sport forward. And so if you do get it, obviously there is, a lot of, wind under your sails that will be behind you. Dumpling, this one is kind of perfect leading in to the rematch in Saudi Arabia, Power Slap number 11 between Dumpling and a crazy Hawaiian. We're going to see if one of these two men are able to achieve a knockout in this one. I can say from being there, I mean, these guys are two stout warriors. I mean, incredibly thick necks, incredibly strong defense. It's going to be tough for either one of them to put the other person down, but it's definitely not out of the question with the way that these guys strike continually. So obviously that's rolling on for the rest of the week, Ding. I believe there was 5 or 6 categories, I believe, are taking place. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, 6 categories.
But let's transition. Let's talk about next year. We got Power Slap Road to the Title, season 2. We got season 3. There's rumblings of season 4 taking place in the first, I'll say first half of the year, potentially the first quarter of the year. In the interview that we did with Dana in Abu Dhabi, he talked about potentially Road to the Title season 4 being in Saudi Arabia. So are they going to go international? Is it going to happen right now? Still, uncertain or up in the air. But wouldn't that be a spectacle to get some of these guys from the other side of the world into Power Slap through Road to the Title, see them advance on that fast track, and be able to move up the ranks? I think would be something interesting. I think we get power. I think we get, in fairly similar fashion. I think we get the show. You typically comes out around that May, June, and kind of run through the summer. I think it's fairly safe to say we'll probably get that again. We'll get a new crop of elite strikers and potentially some stars coming on. I mean, season 3 right now, we're going to talk about it later, but that heavyweight division is looking incredibly interesting right now with the new guys coming into it. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, man. I think that's what you want to see out of these seasons, right? Where you have Road to the Title, you have the culmination at the end. Unfortunately, lightweight, 155 pounds has kind of been, in a very weird state with the 2 cancellations. They don't have a champion still. They had this tournament on the show, which was really, I think, a big spectacle. And then for it to not really have a close at this point, I think it's a little bit disappointing. Of course, it's no fault to anyone in particular, but it's not what we really want to see when it comes to storylines as a spectator. I think that the heavyweights out of the show is best case scenario. Guys like James Siegman, Pono Paul, Bryce Jones, Wes Mina. I think that there's a ton to be desired there as far as just being able to appetite to see these guys continue to compete as they climb up the rankings in their own respective rights, and maybe some of them meeting up with one another, whether for the first time or for a subsequent rematch. Welterweight I thought had a lot of contenders. Middleweight had a lot of contenders. But again, I just don't think we've had exactly that closer. Guys like Vince Tracy, Rod Olavi, there's definitely, I think, opportunity for us to see more of them and really give us sort of that element of, after Road to the Title. The success on the show is one thing, but what do they do when they get out there on the big stage, whether taped or live in front of an audience? How do they perform?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That's a perfect segue. Let's get into it. The biggest storylines from Power Slap in 2025, Ding. What do you believe are going to be some of the headlining stories to come out of the next 365 days?
I think a big one of it is what does Turpin's era look like as a dad, right? As a father, just having a child, has a new purpose of life, a new purpose to compete. Obviously had a few shortcomings this year. Ended the year with the birth of his child. He was supposed to compete against Russell Rivero in October and Power Slap number 9 in Abu Dhabi. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. Fortunately, the birth of his child does. And so we now know we cap off the year, or we start the year, we kick off the year is the word I was looking for, with Austin Turpin, Russell Rivero on Power Slap 11, just below the 2 championship fights. Is this the beginning of, Austin Turpin's, his resurrection tour, if you will, or will he continue to have, bad luck and shortcomings in the year 2025? I think that's one that people will look at. As you remember, I think not only the fact that Turpin was on the show and a lot of the new athletes connected with him, but also I think the fan base connects with Austin Turpin very well. And I think he has that personality to be the most loved, but also the most hated, depending on who you are and when you're tuning in.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of the big mega stars of the sport. And every time he's up there on stage, whether you love him or whether you hate him, he definitely has a personality that people tune in to watch. So it definitely will be one of the big storylines of 2025. For me, I think one of the headlining storylines will be, honestly, the changing of the guard. Now, 2 years into this, we're going to start to see some of the OGs of the sport that have dominated the top potentially start to phase out. On Smack Talk, we had Ryan, the King of King Phillips on, talking about the next match potentially being his last, talking about retirement. I think we're going to start to see more and more from these strikers, that changing of the guard, the OGs. Obviously, Vern Cathy going into the biggest fight of his career as kind of that second chance, and a guy that might be the last chance that he gets a title shot against Wolverine. Wolverine as well. I think for, in all accounts, I hate putting a number on it, but I think it's safe to say, he's probably got 12 to 18 months left in the tank. Are we going to see a changing of the guard there? We talk about, DTP and where he's at. We previously said Vern Cathy. Obviously, in this past year, we had, Emmanuel Muniz, we had Chris Thomas, the new blood of Anthony Blackburn coming in as a title holder. Isaiah Quiones was there from day one. So obviously he's still kind of that old school, but I think how that transition happens, who of these new crop of strikers is ready to take that new reign as things evolve. I'm going to exclude Damien DeBell. I think Damien DeBell, just because of his age, I don't know, what is he, 23, 24 years old right now, still very young. However, he has the experience, but I think it's really going to be that transitionary year where we see the first wave of Road to the Title season 1 competitors start to, phase and evolve. And then we're going to see that evolution. Do some of them stick into coaching? Do some of them go into actually running camps? Do some of them kind of go into the abyss? But we're going to see how that really unfolds as these new crop of strikers from Road to the Title season 2 and season 3. And I mean, even guys like Aaron Turner, who weren't even on the show, how can they rise the ranks and take some of those spots?
Yeah, you bring up a great point, man. There's people like Aaron Turner. I think those are the moments that are very special, where you have a guy who you slide in and he shows, not only can he sort of compete with the creme de la creme, if you will, a guy who was sitting at number 4 in the heavyweight division with quite a few bouts under his belt, big scary guy who had the momentum on him on season 2 of the show as well. The vicious knockout over Miles Jackson in his first showing. And for you to come up there, nobody knows who you were. The most mainstream, if you will, media company that's out there in Slab News doesn't know who you are, can't find you. We post a poster with a silhouette of your image. We were able to correct that and get an image of him, sort of expose him to the world just about 24 hours before the fight. And then you go out there, you do that, you make it to the social media pages before your fight is aired. It's not aired, but you know what I mean. Anytime you make it to social and you're pre-taped, you've done a great job. And you don't need to go on the show. And I think that those are moments where a star is born. I think as we see more of that, I become more and more confident that it can continue to happen. And there's multiple paths to stardom in the sport, not only through the show. I think the show's a great one, regardless of how it's produced, regardless of how much of that time is spent diving into the backgrounds of some of these athletes. But also you have guys who go out there and they just kind of show what they're made of. A guy who has a bit of a football background, just comes out there and shocks the world is probably a little bit hyperbolic, but he definitely surprised a lot of people and made a name for himself in his first showing.
Yeah, I definitely think so. But gentlemen, I think you also are going to have to take a seat to the left. I do believe 2025 is going to be the year of the females. I think women in power slap is going to be changed in 2025 as we know it. We've seen some hints be dropped about getting more women into the sport, about Road to the Title season 4, potentially having upwards of half of the entire cast being female. They're kind of similar to how they had the 155 and try to build out, that category for season 3. Season 2 was all about the super heavyweights. I think we're in a spot, and I mean, there was a ton of rumors speculating as well that Sheena Bathory and Jackie Cataline got offered the opportunity to coach on Road to the Title season 3. However, that fell apart. It didn't happen. I'm sure that's still on the table again once coaching and decisions are being made for Road to the Title season 4. I know we can't talk about it, but there was some other women's fights on the undercard. Some young stars that are going to be coming out of that for Power Slap number 10. We had as many women matches as we've ever seen in Power Slap at Power Slap number 10. So I think all signs point to 2025 being, pushed along by the female. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think it's time that, we've seen women at 170. We saw women at 115 pounds. I think that at this moment, there's really a sort of an innate desire and a real appetite for women in the sport across the board. One thing I do want to sort of highlight, and you sort of glossed over it, is that when you look at the importance of Road to the Title and the competition on Road to the Title, I think in contrast to its what I'll call its sister brand, in the Ultimate Fighter. I think that the matches and the actual competition on the show, Road to the Title, is much more important and it has much more. I'll say it has deeper implications than those of the Ultimate Fighter. In that, as people progress onto their careers in Power Slap on the numbered cards, I think a lot of that momentum and sort of what they're able to accomplish is really built upon what they do on the show. Whereas in the Ultimate Fighter, you could lose and still show up, just depending on if they need somebody as a short last minute replacement. Some of these guys who come off the show, they get an opportunity. We saw them for the first time get ranked before we even saw their episode, before the show was even aired. We even saw a guy like Brennan Rhodes who competed on a numbered card before he was even before the show aired. And so I think that those things are really unique opportunities, and I think that anybody who's getting casted for the show, whether you're a quote unquote OG, who's somebody that's being asked to go participate in the show, whether that's as a replacement or somebody who's just being given the opportunity to sort of give yourself a little bit more exposure to the fan base, or you're brand new and just applied on the website and got a call. I think you really should understand the gravity of that opportunity, and it really can sort of make or break the pace of your career. It's a start. And I see a lot of guys who are chomping at the bit, and there's just no telling if you'll ever get that opportunity. If you squandered it in the first opportunity, and any circumstances could have happened. You could have, for all I know, you could have cut 40 pounds, right? The promotion may or may not care about that and realize kind of that they may need to give you an opportunity to right that wrong. So I think more than anything, if you are on road to the title, I think that those matches and the outcomes of them are very important.
Yeah, I mean, the fight business can be dirty. It can be heartless. But what I will say is the Brass Up Power Slap has given guys the opportunity when they've come in on short notice, have got the short end of the stick. Guys that have been good to them, they have been good back. So, just hold face. Don't go on social and blow this whole thing up before you get that second opportunity, because whenever those opportunities are there, make sure that your phone is open and you're still in good graces, because we all know that it happens time and time again. So we're real excited to see about that. Do you think this is the year of the road show? Is this actually the year that we get a touring power slap? I mean, they keep talking about the number of states that is legalized, but we also know the logistics of making this happen. Is this when we really get, upwards of 40, 50% of the events being out of Nevada? Or do you still foresee, Ding, there being growing pains in 2025 that will keep Power Slap in Las Vegas a little bit longer?
Well, let's do a little bit of math here. 4 events we know are in Las Vegas per the Fontainebleau deal. There's slated to be 2 Saudi Arabia events. There should still be an Abu Dhabi event, and there's rumblings.
Saudi Arabia?
Yeah,
in 2025?
That was what Turkey was very bullish on, was that there'd be 2 power slaps in 2025. And listen, I don't know how much people in the chat pay attention to Turkey Al Sheikh, but the guy gets what he wants because he pays for it. So I would not be surprised if we get another Saudi Arabia card in the summer, early fall. And we'll also see Abu Dhabi probably, I would imagine, again paired with the UFC card. I know UFC will go out to Saudi Arabia again during the year because they did it also this year. They also went in August. So I think there's absolutely a great possibility that we'll see a second Saudi Arabia card. 4 Vegas cards. Miami, I think, is all but set in stone. So by my count, it would be eight cards, 4 and 4. I think we'll be at 50%.
Yeah. I mean, Dana, once again, doubled down talking about Hawaii being that next destination. Obviously, we don't know, if or when that's going to happen. So it seems like it's definitely a storyline that we're going to have to watch as it unfolds in 2025. It's kind of funny. I almost feel like, at least from the media standpoint, it's one of those things that it's almost bittersweet, because everybody wants it to go on the road. Everyone, believes that the live event is the way to grow the sport. But, it obviously comes with a number of different obstacles for the organizers, the strikers, the media. Everything else changes when you get this thing on the road. And I think we're going to look back later on and say, those first couple, events we had in Las Vegas, we actually had it quite easy to be able to watch and follow. and cover those events. And so we'll see kind of as it goes over time. Let's get into it, Ding. Where do you want to start? Let's start with the young guys. I think this is a great way to break into it, get into some discussions about it. But we're going to get into Ding's breakout fighter of the year.
There it is, Mr. Pono Paul. I think, obviously, a guy who's not undefeated. He's not, without chinks in his armor. I think we saw that right on the show. But I think the hardship that Pono's come from is different, and I think that the way that the sort of reception from I've never heard a single striker say a bad thing about Pono, at least not with a serious face, and I think that there's something that's very impressive about that, because it's very hard to get everybody to like you and not try for that to be the case. I think Pono he understands what hardship is like. He understands what it's like to step on a bomb once or twice and try to have to rebuild yourself back up. And I just think the passion that you see in this guy is really something to behold. And he really, really, really has a deeper purpose for everything that he does. And I think in this case, the universe will do the right thing. And I think that Pono Pa will probably end up being a person that we talk about either. I mean, the sport moves fast. It's not out of the question that by the end of the year, this guy fights for a title and potentially becomes a champion. If not, I think by the end of the year, we're talking about it for Pono Pa.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, with the past that he's had, I mean, he's a great role model for a lot of people. We hear the strikers, continually talk about how great of a human being this guy is. And now we're seeing him put it all together. As you said, it's almost like it's written in the stars for him. He's very much a spiritual person in his nature. And, in a lot of ways, and I'm just paraphrasing for what he said, that, his destiny is already written. He just needs to live it now. And so we'll see him rise up here. And I think it's definitely a great candidate for breakout of the year. The heavyweight division has gotten a lot more spicier in the last 3-4 months. And so Pono Pa is going to have a lot of interesting matchups, which I think also plays into this, because when we talk about breakout, you obviously have to have entertaining matches. You have to be able to do it in impressive fashion and be able to climb those ranks. And the heavyweight division is an incredible division to be able to do so, because as we kind of talked about earlier, you've got those old dogs still at the top. Yes, I called you an old dog, Ryan Phillips and Dorian Perez. I mean, Nate Bernard, is he an old dog yet? I mean, he's got a lot of matches now. He's getting there. But we're going to see how all this kind of, plays into it. And, which is why my breakout fight of the year, I'm going to stick in that heavyweight division, and I'm going to go Mr. James Seekman. We've seen James Seekman, obviously, in Abu Dhabi, get the victory over Nate Bernard, veteran of Road to the Title, season 3. We had a ton of great guys coming out of that show. Wes Minna, Bryce Jones, not to take away anything from them, but I do believe that James Seekman, with that iron chin, has the opportunity to continue to rise the ranks. I mean, for all accounts, he was the winner, obviously, coming out of the show. I do know that Pono Pa had that injury. It doesn't mean a lot, but I do think James Seekman in this moment has a leg up over Pono Pa at a potential shot at Damien DeBell. Do I think it happens next? Possibly not, but I do believe that he is just one step ahead of Pono in this potential opportunity. I think he's a guy that's going to be able to harness the limelight. I don't think that the opportunity is going to be too big for him. And, as we kind of talk about in football, defense wins championships. I think he's going to be able to prove that. And, we'll see. I can't anoint him as the next champion quite yet, but we know he's had a way to get under the skin of the champion, Damien DeBell, from day one. Blocked him on social before the show even aired. So he definitely has the confidence to kind of back it up. And so far, he's been showing that skill set. James Seekman is my breakout striker of the year.
Yeah, I think your breakout striker versus my breakout striker will happen some point in the year, and we'll figure out which king right here reigns supreme.
Absolutely. You cut the clips. So if I'm wrong, I'm sure you'll do it. If I'm right, it never happened.
At least you know, man.
Exactly. Let's keep rolling on. Let's look at things a little bit differently in some ways. Fights that must happen in 2025. Let's get into it, Ding. Let's kind of riff 3, 4 each of fights that must happen in Power Slap.
I'm actually interested in what the chat would have to say about this before we even get into it. Let's see if we can get a couple tips here from the chat. If you guys can tell us what fights you believe have to happen in the year 2025. Two people that you don't think the year would be complete without them fighting. Of course, those can be some matchups that you think are going to happen, but what we're really looking for is, or are, excuse me, matchups that are, they're sort of written in stone here, and they're all but announced at this point. I think Brandon Bordeaux Isaiah is kind of a simple one, right? Dorian Perez and DeBell, not exactly what I'm looking for, because I think that those are sort of, again, written in stone. I'm looking at, let's see, comeback has to come back and forth. You know what? That's not a fight in itself, because you can't fight yourself. But I will say, if Amir doesn't compete in 2025, then I don't think the universe would be at equilibrium. So we'll definitely look forward to the comeback kid coming back once again.
All right,
I think
let's start with an easy one then. Let's start with an easy one.
I think there's a no-brainer out there, man. I think the no-brainer is Jackie versus Sheena. I think that obviously that happened earlier this year. Ends in a vicious knockout. Sheena sort of gets dethroned, quote unquote, but then there's the asterisk with the foul or the double foul, whatever you want to call it. It ends up being a disqualification due to clubbing. I think although Jackie dropped her last fight to Robin, I still think that there's an appetite for that fight to figure out where Sheena's at. Obviously, Sheena hasn't been around for a little while either. She just had an MMA fight that was a successful fight. But I think she also has an appetite to right that wrong. So we haven't seen Sheena in a while, and she was sort of the female pioneer of this sport. I think it's important for her to have an opportunity to figure out what's next and where she stands in the lay of the land now that there are a few different names added to the categories. I think Sheena versus Jackie is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of unfinished business there. Jackie versus Sheena. Talked about it, potential coaches on a road to the title season 4, especially if you're looking to build out that women's category, would make a lot of sense. And I think you can get a lot of people, a lot of interest, a lot of eyeballs behind that match happening. I could definitely foresee that happening. International Fight Week. I mean, would you have any bigger of an opportunity to do that? And it could be absolutely phenomenal if something like that could take place. We're going to start off, though. Luke Simon, looking like he wants number 2. Right now, Russell Rivero is in that second contender spot in the light heavyweight division. That was the name that he called out in his post-fight interview with TJ Thomas. Ding, is Luke Simon versus Russell Rivera, who we know is on the card in Saudi Arabia, win or lose? Is that a fight we must see?
No, actually, I don't think so. I believe that Luke deserves a winner, and I think that winning is incredibly important. Russell, Russell was sort of touted as, and still in some ways is still touted as, the boogeyman and the guy that it's sort of, all but reality that he'll eventually be a champion, right? That he's got the look, he's got the very a man of few words. He's very intimidating, packs quite a bit of power. Obviously had a couple moments in his career that weren't exactly the ones that he was looking for against AJ Hints. But I think overall, we should see Luke fight a winner. Whether or not that's Russell Rivera, I guess it depends on what happens on January 30th. But I do believe that Luke should be given his opportunity to crack the creme de la creme of his division. I think he's definitely had a great string of matches from transitioning from the show, obviously now to the live event, and I think he has a great personality. And again, to get hit 3 times in one round and then be able to come back and respond in the way that he did, I think is impressive, all things considered, against a tough guy like TJ.
Yeah, I mean, Luke's in there number 4 right now. Might not be so much about what he's done up there at the table, but rather where the rest of the division is at this current state, with obviously Austin Turpin going up against Russell Rivera, Vern Cathy going up against Wolverine. We're going to see how all of that unfolds. We've seen in the precedent as well, whoever loses the championship match typically goes to that number one contender spot. So we could see if, the potential contender there for Luke Simon before getting an opportunity to go up against the winner of Vern Cathy, Wolverine, Endor, which I think a lot of accounts, Russell Rivera is in a prime position as obviously as well to get that next shot in line. Let's keep on rolling on. This one's interesting. I think we talked about it before. El Perro going down to 170 versus Anthony Babyface Blackburn. Yes, this is Anthony Blackburn calling his shot as to who he wants. I have to agree with him. This is a fight we must see. I think El Perro has done everything to be deserving of this shot right off the bat. I'm just trying to draw parallels. Brandon Bordeaux versus Eddie Spaghetti. Obviously, Azael took care of business in that match. Brandon got the title shot against Isaiah. I think Azael going down is a perfect opportunity to go up against Anthony Babyface Blackburn. I think this would be a phenomenal match for everybody. We do know, obviously, Azael has known about this for a little while, so he's going to be able to prep for this. From everything that we know, it's not going to happen in Saudi Arabia. So obviously he still has time to get down there. And I think we'll probably see the best Azael, and we're going to have to see the best Anthony Blackburn, because I think this is a step up in competition. I think this is going to be a match that we talk about potentially in the end of 2025 as being one of those matches of the year.
Yeah, you know what? I always appreciate a champion who's calling it like it is, despite being, it's easy to sit up there at the mountaintop and point at all the guys who are trying to climb the mountain and tell, kind of poking fun at them and sort of playing keep away. I appreciate that Blackburn's being honest here, and I do agree. I think Azael versus Babyface, if it doesn't happen in 2025, it is it's a gross, sort of wrong, if you will. So I definitely hope we see that fight in 2025. And if I'm being honest, I hope we see it in the first quarter of 2025.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go. Dang this one over to you. We got Anthony DeFrank thinks him and McGregor or him and Rob is a must-have match. Do you agree?
I think I think that my first instinct is, if those are the three options, my first instinct says McGregor or Robert Trujillo, just because of all the background stuff, right? Bovair was supposed to take on McGregor at 9. It doesn't happen. Trujillo's offered the opportunity to step in. He can't do it. So McGregor doesn't compete. Similar thing happens at 10, right? But this time McGregor's down and out. There was some rumblings in the background that some stuff was being potentially worked out at that event for something else. It did involve those people again. So I just think that the story, it's nothing against DeFrank or anything. I just think that story needs an ending. It needs a conclusion. I was incredibly interested in McGregor versus Bovair. Obviously, we don't know the status of that. And actually, I'm happy to say here, we will have Joshua Bovair, if I'm not mistaken, on next week. I'll confirm that. But if not, the week after. So we'll have him here on the next Smack Talk after this, 43 or 44. I'll announce that officially on social media, but we'll be able to talk to him and figure out where he's at. And maybe, if he's still in the race and still a guy that wants to compete, I'm not upset at McGregor versus Bovair being rebooked, but I do want some conclusion to the lightweight championship picture. Somebody has to win the belt at some point. And I think, again, DeFrank was given another opportunity. That got kind of taken away from him with McGregor getting sick. So I think you do something nice for DeFrank also and give him, sort of honor that second chance opportunity. But I believe above all else, at this moment, McGregor versus Trujillo makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of ways, I think it's been obviously disappointing for everybody involved that we haven't got a conclusion to this particular 155 kind of debut. I think we need to see some sort of clarity coming out of this so that we can actually, kind of get into it and really get this division kicking started. In a lot of ways, it's almost like that definitive direction before you see the rest of it, because there is, a bunch of other strikers in that division as well that we do want to see matches from, but I think we all want that conclusion, that big time, finish that we all want from season 3. So DTP versus Bryce Jones. Bryce taking his shot, calling it. Two guys actually very similar in a lot of ways, workman-like mentality, guys on the West Coast. Could be an interesting matchup. Might be a little bit high in the leap for Bryce Jones, but could be an interesting stylistic match. Ding, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting match for sure. I think again, between Bryce Jones and Wes Mina getting shifted in and out of the rankings, I think both guys should have an opportunity to sort of continue to make that climb. My only gripe is just that DTP really has business to take care of. I think Damien DeBell's not, happy with the performance that he just had against the DTP. I think DTP still has some, foul issues that he has to clean up. We know he's very powerful, and so I think that that's something that needs to sort of carry out first. And I think in that amount of time, that gives Bryce Jones an opportunity to sort of put himself in a position where that match makes sense. Unranked against, I think DTP's like DTP's number 1 now, actually. So unranked number 1 against versus number 1 is just completely unreasonable. So I think you get a match or two, and DTP still in that mix. I think you got yourself a deal.
Yeah. I'm going to go to the super heavyweight right now because I do think we need to see a match between Kalani and Danny Van Heerden. I think we need to see, is Danny Van Heerden for real or not? We've seen, a mixed bag of tricks from him up there, obviously being involved in some disqualifications. We've seen Kalani come back and kind of resurrect his career after some hardship and some time away. I think both these guys could have that star potential. And I think a matchup of these two super heavyweights would be something that will kind of pave the way to what's going to happen next in that super heavyweight division. And so I certainly hope that we get this in the first quarter of this year. I think both these guys bring, like I said, that ability to go up there and perform and, have loyal followings in both of their respected, states. And I think Danny Van Heerden and Kalani will be fireworks when they square off, if they square off in 2025.
That's a tough match for me to get behind from on a personal level because I just don't want to see either of the guys lose. That's just the truth, man. I think seeing Kalani sort of his change and his shift after he lost his mom, him being able to come back and have the sort of capstone performance that he did. Danny's kind of been around, still trying to figure out what's what. Hasn't really had that moment ever since season 2 of the show. A guy that just really tried everything. He's on a journey of his own. He's trying everything to get over to the States, to build a life here. I don't want to see either of these guys lose, man. And somebody has to lose that fight. That's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. This one isn't a fight per se, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I want to see Ryan Phillips fight that one last time, to be quite honest. I don't think we really appreciated the skill set of what Ryan Phillips did. You look back at that first ever match on road to the title, season 1 versus, the one-eyed wolf. And could arguably be one of the best slap fights that we've seen in the entire league to this date. And I think in a lot of ways, Ryan Phillips will be remembered later and maybe not be appreciated for what he has done in this sport up until this point in the heavyweight division. So I want to see him in 2025 fight that one last time and, try to live in the moment and be able to, enjoy and respect it. I mean, I guess it's some, in different sports, we know when athletes retire, usually athletes go out, on the losing side of things, but it'd be nice to see Ryan kind of go off into the sunset as a victor here in the next little bit. And, it's not just me, obviously foresighting it. He talked about it when last time we had him on Smack Talk, that retirement seems to be in his near future. So that's one thing that I'm looking to see in Ryan, whoever they decide to pair him up against. Could it be a Pono Paul? Could it be a James Seekman? We'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, obviously we have Wes Mina and we have Aaron Turner out there and Bryce Jones chomping at the bit. So we'll see where that goes. Ding, let's keep on rolling on. Let's go to one that we agree about. I think is the only thing that we agree about on this show. But let's talk about the female fighter of the year and who we believe it is going to be in 2025. We've kind of touched on it, and I think it should be no surprise to anybody. But both of us agree that we think Sheena will be the female fighter of the year in 2025 in Power Slap. We think what she's done in the sport up until this point has been monumental. I think she's been, on a trajectory in her growth greater than anything else that we've seen. Being there right from the beginning and some of the earliest viral moments of the sport. Obviously the last time we seen her was against Jackie Cataline and seeing her laying on her back. She, obviously the match ended the way that it did by disqualification. It feels like some people are kind of pulling back from Sheena a bit, which is a little bit dumbfounded. But, we have heard before that once you have that chink in your armor, do you ever get it back as strong as you were? But I feel personally that Sheena is still leaps and bounds above everybody that we've seen in Power Slap. The experience that she has helps her up there at the table, and she continues to be a force to reckon with. Wouldn't you say, Ding?
Yeah, you know what? I think my reasoning for picking Sheena for this was I think she's on a revenge tour. I think, closing out the year with the MMA fight, obviously she was, I
How did she
believe
do?
she won. She won
Okay, cool.
decisively. The she had the incident in October. She was actually supposed to face. I don't know if I'm breaking any news here, but if I remember correctly, this has been said. But she was supposed to face Jackie again in October. Unfortunately, that doesn't materialize because she had an injury. I think she popped like a breast implant or something in the middle of training. Something actually pretty serious, and so that unfortunately does not happen. Now we're hearing that there's more plans to do this. Frank has said that there's plans to bring Sheena back. In the beginning of the year, we haven't seen her in a while, but she did just make her MMA debut, which is something I know she was working towards. And again, there's new entrants into the sport now, especially at her weight class in featherweight. I think that there's going to continue to be more women, particularly as that being close proximity to sort of her own home country, to Europe in general. I think that she'll be given more than one opportunity here to do things. And I honestly don't. I think the second fight with Jackie does not end the same way. I think it probably is a drag 'em out war. It's anybody's best guess what the ending result will be. But I think even if it is defeat, I just believe that she has the will and sort of the momentum at this juncture, the way that she ended off 2024 to really make a case for herself and sort of show, that she is the force to be reckoned with at 145 pounds.
Yeah. Where does Robin Werchek kind of fit into this entire equation? We've seen her in Abu Dhabi. She's kind of gone, a little bit more silent than I think a lot of the other fighters have. But where does she really factor in to this whole mix?
I think there needs to be a little bit more talent in that division. For her, if she's interested in fighting at 35 or can make that weight, and I think the world is open for her to be able to compete and find people who are around that weight that sort of create interesting moments. She could be a person that fights at Paige VanZant. She could fight Chelsea Dodson at 35. She could fight one of the new ladies that we saw. Whether that be Michael Brown or who did Michael fight? Michael fought. For some reason Morgan's coming. Emily Whitmire. I don't know if that was a one and done for Emily Whitmire, but I do believe Robin probably deserves somebody who's coming off of a win because she kind of had a come around win. But I think for her, she just sort of moved. It's probably better for her to be at 35 if she can make it. I don't know. You've seen her. How tall is she?
Fairly tall. Yeah.
She's pretty tall. You think did she look sucked out at 45?
No, I don't think so. I mean, dude, she was
dropped extra 10.
Yeah, dude, she was in the pub every night.
She was drinking.
She was very vocal about it. So,
man. Listen, if you're living your life, I'm happy for you. So 35 might be a good home for her. There's a lot more talent there, and Yeah, I think that's probably her best bet. I would love to see her against Sheena. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely something to see. And maybe we'll get on one of these overseas cards. Obviously, Sheena is, I believe, still in Europe right now. So you never know. Maybe we'll get it. We don't know if Saudi Arabia is going to have any women on the card at this particular moment or not. But maybe we get it back in Abu Dhabi. But let's go. This one here. Number of new champs in 2025. I'm not even sure. We didn't talk about this one, but of how many new champs that we're going to have. I think we're going to see. I'll go first. I think we're going to have a couple new divisions solidified. I think we've got 155 is going to be an opportunity. I think we've got the women, so we could have two new title holders in 2025 there. And looking at the 5 divisions we have right now, we've got welter, middle, light, heavy, heavyweight, and super. We've got 5 of them. We've got some decisive champions at the top. We've got some newcomers in here. 1, 2. I can see us having 4. I'm gonna peg my number at 4 of new champions that we see before the end of 2025. Ding, how about you?
Oh, you're just gonna keep it to a number, eh? You're not gonna pick.
Well, you have to ask me. How's that?
Okay, all right, that's fair. You know what? I actually agree. I think 4. If you consider lightweight and women, I think 4 is a good number. If I have to pick which classes those would be, I would say you could potentially see a changing of the guard at light heavyweight. I just think that there's a ton of contenders up there that are chomping at the bit. As you alluded to, I think Wolverine is on his way out of the sport. Keep in mind, I'm not saying that the guy's going to get knocked out. He may lay down the belt on his own and go out on his own terms. But I just think he's just got so many people that are after him that really do have that potential. I think you got guys like Russell Rivero, Austin Turpin, depending on who comes out of this fight. You got Frank Matthews right there, showing he's going to be dealing with him in a month. So I think light heavyweight is one for me that I'm looking at for potential title change.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And then also we have welterweight and we have middleweight. First time we've seen anybody put down Isaiah Quiones. And then, that welterweight with Anthony Blackburn, we bring Azael into the mix and Emmanuel Muniz, how close those fights have been. It's nothing against Anthony. I'm not saying that I think he's going to lose, but those fights, could go one way or the other, one foul, one round, bringing Azael into that mix. I think that, puts everything into question there. And even Isaiah Quiones potentially, we've seen him be sat down. He admitted that Brandon Bordeaux found his button. And so, we're going to see. I know he's very confident. He believes that he is going to reign for a very long time in that division. So we're going to kind of see. I think 4 is that right number and could come from one of those particular 2 things. I think it's fairly safe to say Damien DeBell at this moment is in control. We haven't seen any reason to doubt why he wouldn't be in the heavyweight division. And the super heavyweight division being held down by DeCrazy Hawaiian, who will definitely be a Hall of Famer in all regards if and when a slap fighting Hall of Fame ever comes to fruition. But even at that you talk about a dumpling, with obviously it being a draw, and as ugly as it was and non-definitive, 1 point one way or the other could have changed the outcome of that match, and we could have had a changing of the guard there as well. So I think in a lot of ways, and I think you see it in the UFC as well, sometimes they put up, the champions in January 2024 versus the champions in UFC right now, and it almost looks totally different a lot of the times. So, I think the longevity of it, and especially with how often, guys like Isaiah want to fight, these guys want to fight 3-4 times in a year. It's definitely a lot to, kind of hang your hat on.
What? I think the truth is, I don't think anybody on planet Earth, besides Isaiah Quinones, predicted that he'd be champion at the end of this year. Yeah. And it's not because he's not talented; it's because he wasn't even a middleweight back then. Like, there's just so many things that happen, man. We had welterweight obviously changed hands this year twice. Yeah, middleweight changed hands. Heavyweight stayed the same. Light heavyweight stayed the same, but the champion lost. Not in a championship fight, but he did lose, and so. And the super heavyweight stayed the same. So I think more weight classes than than not end up switching hands. So it'll be an
Yeah,
interesting year for sure.
absolutely. Well, we'll just segue in, kind of perfect timing and opportunity. As we spoke about, we're going to talk about the male fighter of the year. My pick, Damien DeBell, I believe will be the male fighter of the year for 2025. I think his dominance at the top of the heavyweight division has been undeniable. He is seemingly starting to grow out of his shell and starting to be more of a personality. We're starting to see him get out more, especially, in the high limit room with his multiple belts, the reign, the chin, his reactions. I think the way that he brings his strike, he just continues to be a true star at the age. One of those guys that no one speaks badly about. And I think through and through, he's going to have a very, very successful year going into 2025.
Yeah, I think I probably took the easier choice.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I still believe in the crazy Hawaiian. I think, a guy that every time somebody says, this next person will be the one to get him, this will be it was Kalani, then it was Danny, now it's Dumpling. Like, I just think he's proven so much that he's here to stay. I think he's grown as a person so much. He's grown as a champion so much, and I really do feel that as the super heavyweight division stands today, all the people that we're talking about, right? Kalani, Danny, McKinney hasn't gotten his opportunity yet, but these guys who are right there at the top of the division, he's taking care of them. Again, he has to finish that story up with Dumpling, but he really has the greatest claim to sort of the mountaintop of anyone. And I think in 2025, I think he'll sort of round that out with the last few names that haven't made it, across his table. I don't know that he knocks the Dumpling out, but after what I saw at 9, I think he probably edges out the decision. I just don't think, especially with him slimming down, I think he'll have greater mobility. And I think, and the fact that he is slimming down to the degree that he is as quickly as he is shows me that this guy's serious. And if he says he's going to do something, he means it. And I can't count a guy out like that. And so I think Hawaiian has an incredible year in 25, and I think he's the fighter of the year, or will be the striker of the year.
Yeah, I mean, very, very likely for sure. Let's talk about potentially comeback striker of the year. I think this is our opportunity to look at some guys a little deeper down the ranks, guys that may not have been active for whatever reason in the last little bit. Some guys that might be on a losing streak, 1 or 2 guys that may not be in the ranks. Who do we think, Ding, are some of those guys that could be a comeback striker of the year?
You know what? I think Cole Young's actually really a great one. I think, obviously he had a lot going on earlier this year. We only saw him compete once, but he's a guy that I think wears his heart on his sleeve and has a lot to fight for. And I honestly believe that he is somebody that can sort of make things happen for himself. He's proven that. And again, that additional motivation to compete is important. And I think, him and everything that Cal's gone through and his family has gone through, I honestly believe him. He's a guy that he takes hits really well against the toughest guys that we've seen at 170 pounds. So whether that, he competes down at 155 or he stays at 70, I think that he could have a really bright future. And I think we'll see more activity out of him in 2025.
Yeah, that wasn't a spelling mistake. Ding just decided to take Corey's comeback.
No, comeback is a spelling mistake, though. That's
probably.
Yeah, that's usual.
All right. All good. Doesn't matter. But either way, I think Cole Young's got a great opportunity, as you kind of said. Tall guy. I don't think he can make it to 155. Could be wrong. I know he fought MMA. I'm not sure exactly where he was when he did that. But I think he has an opportunity to resurrect his career. I think the division, is a little bit weaker for him to kind of rack up some wins, in this current time. And I think he gets it right. Someone else that I think could change the trajectory, a guy like Nate Bernard, I think is also a potential candidate for comeback of the year. Obviously, he's had a couple losses now in that heavyweight division. We know the toughness that he has, the skill set he has, the mentality. And I think he has that potential that we could put him in that in that same category as a guy that can change the trajectory that his career is on. Still young, still hungry, still driven, and I think he does have that opportunity to get back in the win column here relatively quickly. I know it's stacked. I know if you listened from the beginning, you heard us talk about all those young guys: Aaron Turner, Wes Minna, James Seekman, Pono Paul. But we do have Nate Bernard still hanging on there in the top half of the division. What's he at? Number 3, I believe. Yeah,
He
number
should
3
be number three.
contender. And so obviously, the brass of Power Slap believe in him. And I think he's still a guy that has a lot to give. What about the Dane Viernes? Could we see him put it together? Or is it just going to be a downward trajectory from here?
Honestly, I just don't. I think that Dane doesn't take this serious enough. I think he's such a like really easygoing guy, such a chill guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, realistically, what's the pathway? Like these guys love each other so much, the Polynesians, and for him to compete against his own brother, even with a lot of zeros, I don't think it would be a good match. And remember, I was the one who was real bullish on this.
Yeah.
I disagree now. I think after we've seen what they do to each other when it's similar blood or blood lineage, two brothers, those two going at it, they love each other too much, and I don't blame them. But they're not the kind of brothers that you want to see go up there. So I think while his brother's sitting at the top of the mountain, he probably doesn't want to play the game because what's the point
Mm-hmm.
to get up to number one like he was before and never fight for the championship? And if he does he have the heart to take it away from his own brother? I doubt it. I don't think so, just based on what we know about him. So I think Dame Viernes has to make a decision. Either go down. I don't know that he can, but either go down, or if Hawaiian really goes down, then that championship will be vacated. And then Dane has to take this a little bit more seriously. He's got to train. That's a good start. And I think I don't think it's out of the question, but as long as Hawaiian's in the picture, I don't think he does.
Anybody else in that super heavyweight division? I mean, we've got Bikini Manu, Dwayne Crespo, Evian Scott, Lorenzo Florian. See any of those guys kind of resurrecting their career in terms of relevancy in that super heavyweight division?
I think McKinney has a lot of opportunity here. He's a guy that does have an unblemished record. He just hasn't been given that out. I mean, when you look at the rankings, he's a guy that really has not been given his opportunity. Obviously, Dumpling's getting a second chance here because the first one didn't have a decision. Kalani had his opportunity. Danny had his opportunity. Like I said, Dane, I don't think is really a guy that's gonna be able to make a real run at it while his brother's at the top. Dwayne is an interesting one. I think he's got to have more emphatic performances at super. He's a guy that's known for decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not what you want to see every single time a guy goes out. I think that it gets old and it doesn't resonate with the fan base. Obviously, we love Dwayne, and Dwayne knows that. Going out and doing dirty boxing against Yoel Romero is probably a good thing as far as branding goes, but you still can't come back to Power Slap and just decision or DQs and things like that. Like we want to see some action. If it's a decision, at least knock them down. Something that really indicates a level difference. To just squeak out a better form or a better poker face over and over again is not something we really want to continue to see. But he's only had one opportunity, so who knows? I think that he's somebody that we could potentially see more from. But I think above all else, McKinney. I think McKinney's just sitting in the wings, sort of letting all of this time pass, and every time that he's passed over, I think he gets more and more hungry, and I think that he'll come back with the intent to try and shut people up and make them wish that they bet on him sooner.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Time will tell. If when. Not sure what it is. Obviously, like you said, he's kind of been dormant for a little while. I know there were some rumblings of him potentially coming back in Power Slap number 10. Not sure how much of that was made public or not. So I don't want to speak.
Yeah, he talked about it.
Did he? Okay.
He was supposed to fight on the undercard against a debutante who I won't talk about just because I don't know a whole lot about him.
What's a debutante? Sounds French.
It's somebody's making their debut.
Okay.
It's a word.
Never heard
It's a word. Look it
all
up.
right. I've heard it before, but just didn't know what it meant.
Yeah,
but heavyweight division slammed. Light heavyweight division got some guys. Garrett Bleaksley, Alan Klingbeil, Dalvin Hamlet.
I don't think Garrett Blakeslee's fighting anytime soon.
You don't think so?
For anybody who's got him on social media, you'll know why my head is in that place. I think Garrett Blakely's got some personal stuff to work on, man. And I actually hope that he, gets some. I don't want to say help in a way like he's needs to go to be committed, but I think he's going through a lot, and I think he needs support, and I hope he gets that support before we see him
Yeah.
back up there.
Yeah, I hear you, man. All right. Light heavy, welterweight. Let's see who do we got there. I mean, we've got Wesley Drain, AJ Hints, Garrett Grimes.
Whoa, AJ Hints, you just said that. That was not public, but
What do
it
you
is
mean?
now. Where's that at?
What?
Where do you see that at?
In middleweight. He's there still in middleweight.
Oh, you said in middleweight?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so I just messed that up. Okay, continue.
Yeah. So middleweight. I got like AJ Hints, obviously been away from a little bit. I think has an opportunity to come back and resurrect that career. You think back and how emphatic his defense has been over the years. He had these little hands on him that just were able to find the button on a lot of guys. Guy that's super confident, guy that keeps dropping weight, light heavy, down obviously in middleweight now. And be interesting to see him come back into power slap and see if he has that second coming, almost in the same way that Vern Cathy is right now with his actual title opportunity that he has in that division. Garrett Grimes, I guess maybe he's already started to come back, so I don't think him and Darren Godfrey, I think you can't really put them in that same mold. Eddie Brahmer, I mean, we talk about Azrael being the top of that. How much do you think it hurts his stock with the loss?
I mean, it's tough to say. Azael's just such an animal, man, and pun completely intended. He's just, again, he has this freakish recovery. It doesn't matter what you hit him with; it just seems like he's not phased. Even though it almost looks like he's fighting what his body wants to naturally do. Um, I don't think that was like the worst performance I've ever seen in my life. Um, you know, obviously getting dropped is not ideal, but I think he probably is one. If he can get a good win in the top of the division, looking at numbers 1 through 5, or even 6, I think that he could probably sort of reroute the sort of direction that went in. But I don't think there's anything. I mean, obviously you don't want to lose, but I think if you're going to lose to a guy like Azael, I don't think that there's any shame in that. He was number one for a long time for a reason.
Absolutely. We'll finish off here the welterweight division. Jewel Scott, victorious. KO Chris Thomas, guy that hasn't been, up there on the right side of the victors the last little bit. A guy that a guy that's been around very, very long time. KO Chris went, I believe, 5-0. To start his career, a guy that had a ton to give this sport, ran through a lot of competitors very early on. I believe there's still a little bit of gas left in that tank for KO Chris. I think we see a resurgence of KO Chris in 2025. I think we see, him go up against a guy like Andrew Provost. I maybe even a Cole Young, and I think he can prove that he's back on that right path, get his mind straight, get everything ready to go. And I think he can climb back in that ranks. That's just seemingly getting a little bit more competitive now. And I think he could be a comeback guy for sure. Just because of how far he's fallen, I think he can get back on that climb and potentially get to the top of the division. Dave, got you back.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind when you talk about KO Chris, he dropped Emmanuel Muniz late in their fight. He also wobbled Anthony Blackburn. He didn't put him down. Kudos to Anthony on that recovery, but he definitely had him doing the chicken dance. So, the power's there. You say what you want to say about KO Chris, some of the tirades he goes on social media. I think all of that makes me want to hear, or to see him perform even more. And I wouldn't be opposed to seeing, I know he's ranked high up there, but given the inactivity of a lot of the guys in that division, we don't really know where they're at or what they're up to. I wouldn't mind seeing one of the guys off season 2 take on a guy like Kale Chris. So Vince Tracy, it's your turn.
Vince Tracy, eh? Vince Tracy, Kale Chris.
Yeah, man, Canadian. You gotta rep for the Canadians. I wouldn't mind Rod Olavi too. I think Rod would piss KO Chris off to no end though. I think KO Chris would get so upset at Rod and his games.
Yeah, that would be entertaining. Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you on that one. All right, Ding. We're getting in here. 70 minutes or so. Everyone who tuned in, we appreciate you as always listening to Smack Talk. We wish you the very best of the holiday season, however you are celebrating. Next week, obviously New Year's. Whatever you do, do not drive a motor vehicle or even a bicycle under the influence. Stay clean, stay safe. We appreciate everybody, like we said, who tunes in to Slap News. Everybody who likes, comments. We wouldn't be here without you. We wouldn't keep the streak of continuing to bring you live content every single week. Did we even miss a week this year? I'm not even sure what the numbers are at, but we've been hitting it every single week. It may not have always happened on the same date of the week, but the evolutions evolve. We keep coming back, bringing you guys what I believe to be some of the best coverage in the entire industry. Much love, much respect. We'll see you guys. When is New Year fall, Ding? I'm going.
New Year's is Wednesday.
Are we doing? How crazy are we going, Ding? We getting a live show
I mean,
Wednesday?
New Year's is not a very important spectacle in the United States. It's the eve that's important, right? The fireworks and all that stuff. So yeah, we'll absolutely do a live show. And you know what? Like I said, we are expecting to, and I don't want to misspeak, but we are expecting to have Joshua Bovair actually joining us next week on the show. So we'll be able to find out whatever he's comfortable sharing, what happened, and where he's at as it stands today.
Awesome. Appreciate it, my man. Until next week, we'll see you guys on New Year's.